How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and today we are returning with, I believe this is episode 6 now of the series of teams you should consider using for a Madden 20 connected franchise mode. Whatever, you know what the title is. But we've gone through 5 teams up to this point, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you this next team that I reveal, probably going to be an easy one to, repair, to rebuild or whatever, because they don't really need that much rebuilding. It's really about establishing an identity and a couple other narratives too that I'll get into. But we've gone over teams such as the Cincinnati Bengals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Arizona Cardinals, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, and the Detroit Lions. And today we're going to talk about the Carolina Panthers. And they don't really have a whole lot of weaknesses, but let's just go ahead. I'll be able to break it down for you. So, of course, your quarterback room is a lot, it's pretty good. You got Cam Newton, who, he's coming off a shoulder injury. He had surgery on it and whatnot. He's already throwing in training camp. But it's going to be interesting to see, not only in real life, but in the game, how he's going to play. Of course, he's going to be a beast as a runner. Is he going to build off of what he was doing last year in terms of being a more accurate quarterback? Because he was having a career year in terms of completion percentage until the injury. So, we'll just have to see. And then this team drafted Will Grier in the 3rd round, I believe. Will Grier was my quarterback number 4. Or no, he was my quarterback number 5, excuse me. I had a two-way tie for 4. Will Grier, just not really good mechanics. He has the skill set. He can throw the ball, but he's not going to blow you away. You see people fall in love with a lot of these players who come from really good college systems. Not saying that Will Grier is a system guy, but people really fall in love with college production. And if anything, if the NFL's proven anything, it's that college production doesn't matter. Because this is a different position, but for perspective's sake, George Kittle from Iowa, he was a 4th-round pick. He had 20-something catches that season, and he comes into the NFL, and he's already one of the 5 best tight ends. So it just goes to show you that college production really doesn't matter that much. It's what you do once you get to this point. What can you do once you're in the NFL? And for Will Grier, he's got Aaron Rodgers' size anyway, because Aaron Rodgers is 6'2". He weighs a little bit more than 217, but he's got that size going for him. He's not Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback, not even close. But if Cam Newton's not working out and you want to establish a new identity, you could progress Will Grier to eventually take over for Cam Newton. This team is a perfect team for a longer rebuild. That's why, it would be exciting to have Will Grier on the team. And then you have Taylor Heineke, who, fun story, in high school he beat, Quavo was the quarterback, Quavo from the rap group Migos. Quavo ended up beating his team in a state championship game. So Taylor Heineke, who has made starts for this team and the Houston Texans. And then Kyle Allen from Houston, I don't know a whole lot about. Not going to really comment. Now we get to the running back room. Christian McCaffrey, depending on who you ask, this is a little bit of an unpopular opinion. He's a top 5 running back in the game. And not in Madden, but I'm talking about in real life as well. He is a top 5 running back. I know some people, they might not give him that benefit of the doubt. Nah, he's top 5 in my opinion. He just does everything so well. He can get you 2,000 yards easily every season with a combination of rushing and receiving. He did basically all of the same things at Stanford. He really just stepped into the NFL and started day 1, and he's been able to do all those things. And then you look at Jordan Scarlett from Florida. Some off-the-field concerns with him. I believe he was a 5th-round pick, but a solid backup for a guy like Christian McCaffrey. He's going to offer a different element in this run game. Same thing with Cameron Artis-Payne. So, both of these guys are going to offer, a different element to the run game, a little bit more power, a little bit more balance as well, and some shiftiness. And then you have Elijah Hood, who is more of a special teamer. Same thing with Kenneth Farrow from Houston. Alex Arma, he's the fullback. They started using him in the offense a lot more last year, especially in full house and pistol formations. So we'll see if they use him more this season. Then we get to the wide receiving corps. I like this wide receiving corps a lot, but again, it comes down to who's going to emerge. My pick is Curtis Samuel to emerge. I think he's going to have a breakout season for this team. But you have DJ Moore, who's entering year number 2. He's probably going to be wide receiver number 1 on this team as well. There was a big debate over who should have went first out of the receivers. Is it DJ Moore or Calvin Ridley? Calvin Ridley, of course, ended up having the better season. I still like DJ Moore. So for me, it's a toss-up. I mean, Calvin Ridley played at Alabama, one of the best receivers to ever play there, not named Julio Jones or Amari Cooper. So there's that. And then DJ Moore was just pretty much a stud at Maryland. So you can understand why, there's like a cross, because you have one guy who was productive at a great school and one guy who went to a good school and was just an absolute stud. So we'll see how their careers go. Chris Hogan, he's bounced around a little bit. He was with the New England Patriots prior, and then, of course, with the Buffalo Bills at the start of his career. A solid veteran. Same thing with Torrey Smith. Both of these guys are, solid veterans to have on the team. It'll be interesting to see if they both make the roster. And then you have Jarius Wright, who started playing pretty good for this team down the stretch. And then Terry Godwin Jr., this is a very interesting one, a 7th-round pick at wide receiver. I think he's going to make the roster, and it wouldn't surprise me if he got some legit playing time. I think he's a really good receiver. I've seen him play in person as well. He can absolutely take the top off the defense. He does his best work in the slot, but he's not like a true slot receiver, if that makes sense. He's just a deep threat, but running those seam routes, he can do it. So that's just my 2 cents on him, and these two guys I don't know a whole lot about. Now we look at the tight end room. Not Greg Odom, I'm sorry, thinking NBA. Greg Olsen is another foot injury away from joining the Fox, NFL on Fox crew, so that's going to be interesting. How do you address the tight end position? Luckily, this team went out last year and drafted Ian Thomas, who did show some promise last year. Was somewhat productive when Greg Olsen was out. This team also has Chris Manhertz, who, he's decent. I mean, he's a good 3rd tight end. And then Jason Vander Laan, I don't know a whole lot about. And J.J. Jansen is the long snapper for this team. Now we go to left tackle. You have Taylor Moton, who kind of emerged last year on the offensive line. Granted, he kind of had to. This is an offensive line that's actually starting to get better. They lost Andrew Norwell 2 summers ago, and now they're starting to fix up this offensive line again. You look at the left guard position, that is where Andrew Norwell played, and it's still a weak spot, but Greg Van Roten is going to be the starter there. And then this team picked up Kofi Amichia, who was drafted by the Packers. They ended up picking him up off of waivers. So we'll see if he's still got some life left in him. Maybe he emerges as a starter. More of an athletic project type of player. We'll see if he can offer something. And then right here we have Matt Paradis, who, ignoring the Madden rating, he's kind of an undervalued center. I think he's a really good center. Denver made a mistake by letting him hit the market. They should have just tried to sign him for as much as possible. Matt Paradis is a beast. And then Tyler Larson, could play guard for you, but as a backup center, you could do worse. And then Jack Allen, I don't know much about. Then we get to right guard. You have Trey Turner, who I think is a pretty solid right guard, man. I think he just does the job. One of the more underrated guards in the league. And then you have Brandon Mahone and Tyler Hearn, who I don't know a whole lot about. And then right here at tackle, my right tackle, you have Darrell Williams, who they brought back on a 1-year deal. Pretty solid. I thought he was solid last year. And then they also went and drafted Greg Little in the 2nd round. He was regarded as one of the top tackles, but then because of medical reasoning and not doing the combine and everyone else doing the combine and, boosting their stock, Greg Little ends up sliding to the 2nd round. The Panthers thought about getting him in the 1st round, which is interesting, but of course they went with Brian Burns, the edge rusher, who we're going to talk about later. But Greg Little, if Darrell Williams after this 1-year contract, he's like, no, I'm leaving, I'm out. They have Greg Little, who has been under, guidance for a year, so he could assume that starting role. Or maybe this year they play him at guard. He's one of those tackles that I could actually see playing guard and being good. And then you have Dennis Daly, who I believe was I don't want to say he was an undrafted free agent, but I really think he was an undrafted free agent out of South Carolina. Speaking of undrafted free agents, I didn't talk about this, but running back Elijah Holyfield is an undrafted free agent. I don't know if he makes the roster or not. That'll be interesting. But I think him, Jordan Scarlett, and Christian McCaffrey, that's a good trio. And then Amini, I don't know a whole lot about. So now let's get to the defense. We have Brian Burns, who... I really liked Brian Burns. I considered him and Montez Sweat kind of in the same realm. Both athletic, both had production. I think Brian Burns is just a better pass rusher. I had Montez Sweat ranked ahead of him, though, because Sweat is better against the run. But to me, Brian Burns might end up being the better pro. And I know people don't want to hear that, but Montez Sweat has this heart issue, and it's very concerning. I know it's not like as serious as Maurice Hurst, but it is kind of a serious thing. It's something you have to monitor. And plus, I don't know how much he will play at Washington. I assume a lot, but Washington may want to sit him for a year. Brian Burns, I can absolutely see playing right away. And then you have Bruce Irvin, who I know he's listed as a left end, but I think this defense is running a 3-4, so he could play some outside linebacker. Both of these guys could, realistically. And then you have Brian Cox Jr., who's not bad, a solid depth guy. And then you look at right end, you have Mario Addison, who is a pretty versatile defensive end. He's getting up there in age, but he's pretty solid. And then this team has Effie Obada, who I think was from a supplemental draft. I don't really know for sure, but he looks like he could be something. And then you have Marquise Haynes from Ole Miss. Nice depth right there. And then at defensive tackle, it's not showing up on the roster right here, but they actually do have Gerald McCoy, K'Wan Short, and Dontari Poe, and Vernon Butler Jr. So those are actually their defensive tackles. That's going to be their 3-man front. So I know on the depth chart and everything it looks weird. They do have Gerald McCoy, but they also do have K'Wan Short and Dontari Poe. That's going to be their 3-man front. And then, Brian Burns and Bruce Irvin are probably going to be the outside linebackers. Shaq Thompson and Luke Kuechly will be the middle linebackers. And then, you have like Christian Miller, Jermaine Carter as like backups. But Shaq Thompson, a former safety from Washington, converted to linebacker. Pretty solid. Hasn't really reached his ceiling yet. And Luke Kuechly, of course, one of the best in the game, if not the best middle linebacker. Christian Miller from Alabama. I like the pick. I think he was like a 4th or 5th round pick. I like the pick. I think there's still some more developing for him to do before you just throw him out there. But yeah, the depth chart looks really weird. I think the person that made this roster didn't know the Panthers switched defenses, but it's okay. Now we go to the cornerback depth chart. It could be worse. These are the guys that are showing up now. James Bradbury, he's starting to come along. I actually do like James Bradbury. I don't think he's bad. Dante Jackson looked like a solid rookie corner last year. Didn't get talked about enough because of all the breakout defensive backs from the rookie class. Ross Cockrell, not really that good anymore. Kayvon Seymour, I don't know. He's okay. And then Corn Elder didn't really play a whole lot, but he could this year. At safety, they're pretty weak. Strong safety, they're okay, but free safety, they're pretty weak. They should have addressed the free safety position. I don't know much about either guy, but you get the strong safety. Eric Reed, I know everyone's gassing up Eric Reed. He really wasn't that good last year. I'm just going to be honest. He really wasn't that good. Denoris Searcy, more of a special teamer these days. Same thing with Colin Jones. And Quinn, I don't know a whole lot about. Their kicker, Graham Gano, one of the best in the business. Michael Pilardi, one of the best punters in the business. So, yeah, the reason I did pick this team for a potential rebuild is because, they're in the NFC. Of course, that's the biggest excuse. That's why there's been a lot of NFC teams. And you're in a division where, same thing with Tampa Bay, who I talked about, excuse me. The Saints are going to be the team to beat. The Falcons, when healthy, are one of the best teams in the NFL, so you got your work cut out. Those division games are going to mean a lot more, with the Carolina Panthers. Not to mention, if Cam Newton's not cutting it, you could move to Will Grier. The running back room is interesting, and we'll see how you manage the talent and the wide receiver room as well. The offensive line is pretty solid. So on offense, you're pretty much good. It's just about how much success you have with your guys. On defense, you are transitioning to a new defense. You're going to have to work out the kinks. You're going to have to figure things out at safety. You're going to have to add more cornerback depth. You're going to have to, continue to add more edge rushers as well, because I don't think 2 edge rushers are going to be enough. Teams these days typically have 4 good edge rushers, good productive edge rushers that they could throw out there at any time. So we'll just have to wait and see with this team, but this is a very exciting team to use. Plus, Greg Olsen probably retires after this year anyway. So hopefully you guys enjoy. And I believe 2 or 3 more teams left. I don't know. But we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Peace.